Oh, we are wife.
Okay.
Okay. Hi everyone, and we are wife, and welcome to the Omakase Show webinar series. My name is Wowa or Owana Yara. I'm hosting this series, and before we dive into today's episode, I just wanted to remind you once again that you can always support our show by going directly to the Omakase Show on X, and then you would see this cash button, and you can send your donations in Ethereum, which is highly, highly appreciated. And so today we have quite special episode. Just for the context, I got in touch with Damian, who is running slightly late for a really reasonable thing. And basically, we will be talking with Karen and Damian, artist, and also Damian is one of the founders of the Havana Biennial, which happened in Cuba. And hi, Karen, thank you so much for joining me today. I do believe this episode is quite special, and we will be talking about highly important theme not fully discovered yet, in my opinion. So can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do and how you got into this field?
Sure. My name is Karen Frances Ng, and I'm a digital artist. I'm in the NFT space, and I've been here since the late 2019, the beginning of 2020. My Twitter handle is Ocular Delusion, OCUL, like that. You'll find me, Ocular Delusion, but also with my name, and that will kind of give you a sense of the people that I work with in this space, some of which, I think some of the names that I've worked with will probably be familiar. But I am, as an artist, I think pretty low-key myself. And I suppose because I sort of am the sort of person who likes to build with other people in the background, making artworks that are collaborative, and that can reach, I don't know, I think that when I work together with other artists in collaboration, I feel like the message can be stronger and we reach more people in a more relatable way, and also have this incredible synthesis of creative ideas. The more people, in my opinion, the better. And so even though I do make my own solo work, I work most happily in collaboration, which is why you may not see my name popping up as a solo thing as often as you see me in relation to other things like what we'll talk about today.
It's incredible, I guess. I'm not a team player myself, so I always love the people who are. I think it is an incredible skill set. So I want to dive directly into Biennale, and then I guess Damian will join us too, and he will elaborate more from his perspective. So basically, there is this beautiful article that you have written on the Biennale itself. And can you just tell us more on how you created this Biennale in Cuba, which is already impressive, but then also just before before this webinar, you mentioned that most of the artists don't speak English, so in general there was quite a language barrier. So how all these international artists got together and made this Biennale possible?
Right. So just to be clear, we didn't actually create the Biennale. The Havana Biennale has been in existence for, I think, something like 40 years. And so the one that we participated in, I think, was the 15th one. So it's been long established, and it takes place in Havana and also in this town that's outside of Havana called, I'm going to get this, the pronunciation wrong, Matanzas, but I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. And Damian is an artist who lives in Cuba. So I met Damian only virtually, sadly, and all of these other artists because we all participated in one of the earliest blockchain art experiments, which is called Dada.art. That was started by two artists, Judy and Bea, and it was about creating an economy for artists that would allow us to focus on the intrinsic values of making art and not have to worry about becoming a commodity in ourselves, so that we could be supported by the art we make without having to constantly churn out individual pieces of art and put ourselves on the market, for example. So this in itself was a really big experiment, and I think I've linked out to it in my article, but if maybe after this I'll put up a link to some of the data material. So a lot of the artists used the Dada platform, which I think began exactly 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure, many of whom are in South America or Central America, just people from all around the world. But there's like a really strong sort of core group of artists who talk to each other on Telegram and have worked with each other for many, many years. And they mostly speak Spanish. So there's some of us who speak Spanish. We have one artist in Croatia. We had one artist in Los Angeles. I'm from California, but I live in the UK currently. And Sphinx, or Damian, is one of the Spanish-speaking artists, and of course he lives in Cuba. So he has been involved with the Biennale in the past, and he proposed this digital art collaboration for this year's Biennale, and it got through. And so he basically got all of us together virtually online in a Telegram group where we all talk, and said, would you guys be willing to do a live collaboration for the Biennale on these days? And if so, then we will coordinate it. So that's how it began. Telegram, fortunately, has an automatic translation system. If you pay for Telegram Premium, it allows the conversation to be translated into your language, which is incredibly useful for me because I love working with these. So we've all known each other for years because of Dada. And while this is not a Dada project, it does it's infused with the spirit of Dada in the sense of it's a platform that encourages conversation through drawing. And typically on the Dada platform, if you go there, you'll see someone will make a drawing and then someone can come and add to that drawing in a long strip. And the conversation can go on for years. In the case of what we did for Havana, we didn't use the Dada platform. We used a program called Magma, which allows anybody to share a canvas from anywhere in the world to draw together. And we, as a group of artists, had in the past gotten together on a Friday night and sat and listened to music and drawn together from wherever we were in the world. So this is something that we had already been doing in the past. So we just basically took those skills, and Damian set it up for the Biennale on these particular dates and times, made a big projection screen, and we met at the assigned time and got together and drew live for the audience while the DJ played music in the background. So that's how this all came about.
So just for the context, there are major blackouts in Cuba. Blackouts means, just to explain to the audience, that there is no electricity and sometimes no water, because we also have electric pumping systems for water. This is quite frequent in Cuba, and what Damian mentioned to me is that basically everything was kind of covered by EcoFlow, which is an alternative source that you plug in, it gets charged, and then it works and provides electricity. So can you tell us a little bit about this situation? Because obviously it requires a lot of power to create this empty canvas and invite the artists to join, to collaborate on this project together. How was the technical part of the things considering blackouts?
So Damian had to coordinate all of this with, like, I don't know how many of us, like 15 artists around the world with limited internet. So while it's true that he was able to bank power using batteries, the problem is that the internet is down, right? So quite often would the other artists, Adriana, for example, I think she's in Spain, was coordinating, making the spreadsheets about these are the days we're going to do it, these will be the themes. We had rehearsal days, but quite often we had to do it without him because he may or may not be able to make it to our meetings. While we were coordinating our practice sessions and themes, he was in the background trying to make sure that he had enough power banked in order to have a backup for the live performance night in case the power went out. And we also did bank some drawing performances before the night of the live performances in case the internet went out as well. So as he has said to me, you know, he made a backup, and then he made a backup of the backup, and a backup of the backup of the backup. And was kind of, I mean, he worked so hard, and I mean, it's really, it was just an incredible feat of, this kind of thing is really difficult, even if you do have complete power and internet, right? You have to schlep all the equipment, you have to navigate all the artists and the scheduling, time zones, languages. There were artworks by each of us individually also flanking either side, organizing all of those artworks, making them into a video loop and making sure that stayed on. The whole thing was a huge effort on his part, and really we couldn't have done it without him, you know?
That is so true. Just on the Damian, he's extremely resistant in a way that we were scheduling this webinar with him for a month because of the blackouts and basically the reply time it takes him to reply, but he always does reply, right? So yeah, if you have a person in your life that kind of ghosted you, just think about Damian, who manages to reply all the time.
Exactly.
And so if I understood correctly, you had kind of like private sessions where you were creating, and then you had public performances that were being performed physically in Cuba. Or
okay, no, so the artists, most of us were in our home countries. So this included Peru, Argentina, Chile, Croatia, Spain, England. I can't remember what else. I have them all listed in the article. Damian was on the ground in Cuba, but he was the only person who was making the drawing with us in Cuba. The rest of us were home in our own countries, beaming in by internet using Magma. So he was beaming the Magma canvas from online onto the projection screen, and everybody who was standing in the square with the DJ, Damian, who was drawing the DJ, and then people standing and dancing, watching this painting unfold in front of them. So on those nights, we were really there drawing, and you could see our names next to like the little marks being made as it was happening. There's some videos on my, I think I have some videos on my article as well, linked to the bottom.
actually, if you don't mind, how about I put it on? I think this is the one, right?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, there's Damian.
So basically, this is in Cuba, right?
Yes, this is in the square in Cuba, a public square.
Wow. I have no idea how you manage something like this.
I don't think he slept for a week. I didn't. I certainly didn't, because in the time zones, I had to be up between midnight and 4 in the morning to do this.
Oh, and this is basically the artist kind of like doing their job. Like all this.
Yes,
Okay.
all the people names you see are the artists working together.
Wow. And so basically, I don't know if this is the right question to ask you. However, what Damian mentioned is that he felt that it wasn't that well preserved in Cuba. Like in general, there was still misunderstanding around digital art. Maybe you can elaborate slightly on this, how, considering the location, the artwork and the performance was taken by the audience.
The audience in Cuba?
Yeah.
I actually don't know, but I do remember him saying to us quite often as we were doing this, we're making history, no one has ever done this before, which I think for those of us who have been making art digitally for many years, we forget that not everybody has the same access to free media and free internet and freedom of expression, like a lot of people don't live like that. And so this experience really helped me to remember to not take that for granted. And the fact of the matter is that apparently in all of the Biennale's history, they've never had a piece of art like this. Probably certainly no collaborative digital artwork, maybe no digital artwork at all, I'm not sure. Certainly not the sort of thing where you're opening up the stage to a bunch of artists around the world and giving them the freedom to draw anything in real time without being, censored in any way. And we were doing this with that consciousness that we always have to be careful about what we're doing, but at the same time, really address the themes of, the themes that were given to us about collaboration, cooperation, and all those things. Yeah, so we were navigating that political sensitivity as well as everything else. And it was a really amazing feeling to know that this was the first time that such a thing had ever been done. It was a real honor.
Definitely. I have like a few thoughts on what you just said. So in general, like in my experience, I texted Damian and then he disappeared for some time and I did follow up, which is basically how I normally do it. I can do like 3 follow-ups. I really don't care. I'm really like persistent. And he replied, I'm sorry, like I have blackouts and things like that. And I felt so arrogant that I didn't even thought about it. So this is like definitely kind of a story about appreciation of the resources that we kind of have available and somebody doesn't. But one thing I wanted to check on with you as an artist who was a part of this performance, have you ever thought about censorship in a way that you are in UK and you can do whatever you want with this canvas that you have right in front of you, but you also know that there is a Damian sitting right in the city center of Cuba, and whatever you may do may kind of impact on what is going to happen to him. Does it make sense? Like, have you ever had this thought when you were kind of creating?
No, I don't think I ever had those kinds of thoughts before in any kind of meaningful way where what I was going to do in an artwork was going to have could possibly, in theory, have an impact on someone else's life like that. But this was also compounded by the fact that in late January, in those days when we were doing this, we were also inaugurating a new president in my home country. And I was aware that, those issues are becoming more familiar to Americans in a way that we've always taken for granted that we can say whatever we want. And now we are getting a firsthand taste of what that might feel like to be taken away. And so it was interesting to have that thought in my home country. This stuff was happening in my home country and people having that kind of discourse while actually making art live in Cuba, where I could possibly have an immediate impact on the life of some fellow artist on the ground. It was sobering for sure. And it has definitely changed it's definitely forced me to value the freedom of speech that I've had my entire life. And I've completely taken it for granted because I've never not had it, right? So this is my first experience really of, it wasn't taken away, it hasn't been taken away, but even the possibility of it being taken away is very sobering.
Definitely. And I'm not sure if you can answer this question, but I will go for it. Have you had any restrictions or topics that you had to avoid using in this public installation?
Nothing. I mean, we were basically asked to stick to the themes and to not write any words or anything like that. I don't remember anything in particular that we weren't supposed to write, partly because a lot of the conversation was taking place in Spanish, and so I can't exactly remember, but we were definitely conscious that we were going to be careful and mindful of the fact that of where we were and to be respectful of the space that we were in, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then so basically there is a Havana Biennial which happens with some frequency, and the Digital Art Biennale kind of organized by Damian and you and other artists together is the event that will be held again during the next Havana Biennale. Is this correct?
Will we do another collective drawing?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about that, actually. I mean, this one was so hard to put together. We kind of, did it by the skin of our teeth. We kind of fell over in exhaustion afterwards, and we haven't really talked about it. So I don't know, actually. That would be great. I would love it if we could, of course.
I'm not sure if I can ask you this question, but considering your involvement in this project, where do you see Cuban contemporary art is heading to, like digital art and all these things? If you can kind of provide an overview on this region.
I can't really answer that myself. I know that Damian has a lot to say about it. But because I have absolutely no experience of Cuba. This was like my first and only experience with Cuba at all. And it was really a magical experience. But yeah, I can't really speak to contemporary art in Cuba or where this will sit at all. But I really hope that the people who got to see it enjoyed it, and we certainly enjoyed making it, and it felt very meaningful at the time for all of us artists.
Yeah, yeah, I have a lot of questions regarding Cuba and everything that is happening there. However, we are still waiting for Damian to join, if he can join today. If he cannot, I'm sure we can reschedule and do this webinar once again with Karen and Damian, so we can dive into it completely. And as I'm running out of questions to Karen, I'm going to improvise and ask you, Karen, if you feel like there is something I haven't asked you yet, but you feel like sharing regarding this project.
I don't know. Is there anybody in the audience? Can they ask questions?
So basically, I don't see anything in the chat right now.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
I don't know. I guess from my perspective, this is not my first live communal drawing performance. I also have done things like this with a tool called Tag Tool, which allows you to paint and animate live on a shared canvas on the internet around the world. And so I've done projects, for example, where several artists got together to draw live on a building in Brazil from wherever we were, or in Vienna from wherever we were, as part of festivals. And I just have to say that if anybody hasn't tried doing something like that, I would highly recommend that you do, because it's kind of like being in a jam session in a jazz band, where you have to have this incredible amount of trust with your fellow artist. You want to be able to preserve the voice or the vision of what your fellow artist is doing. Some artists are really good at certain kinds of drawing, and some artists are better at different other kinds of drawing. So for example, there's many great figurative drawers, drafts, I don't know what to call them, artists in the group. I'm not great at figurative drawing at all. I'm, in my own work, much more of an abstract, textural, kinetic type of artist. So it's a really interesting experience to collaborate in real time with that level of trust, of making sure that the vision of your fellow artist is preserved and enhanced by what you're doing, and then trusting that they will also have it for you. And I think that that exercise in itself is a really good thing to do as an artist, or even really as a human being. This is not really something that we're encouraged to do, right? We're really encouraged to have our own account and our own identity and our own, it's all about the individual. But I kind of feel like in this day and age, when people are becoming so divided, it's such a lovely thing to be able to come together and use the language of art to convey not just a message, but just to demonstrate the power of working together like that. Like, it's a really magical experience as an artist to have. And so if there's any artists here watching, I would highly recommend going on Magma and inviting some of your artist friends and getting in there and drawing together. Or, if you want to do your own individual artwork, go to the Dada platform and try that out as well. Just see if you can have a visual conversation with somebody.
It's actually an interesting subject to explore. What would be your tips for artists who used to be solo and working alone, if they are kind of feel like exploring this new medium of collaborative works? What would you recommend to them in general?
Oh, I mean, I think just like pick people that you really like and trust and whose work you admire, and just go there and have fun. I think, leave your ego at the door and just get in there and play. It's like a sandbox, and you can be, the thing is, like, what you come up with other colleagues is so much. It's always like, I've never had the experience where I've shared a collaborative artwork with someone and not been like, oh my God, that's amazing, right? I'm always in awe of what comes out of these collaborations. If you look at my Twitter, there's several right now. I have one collaboration with with Lenara Verl. Her name is, I think, Lenara on Twitter. And also with the 105 Collective, which is a group of artists here in the UK. Like, almost all of the work that I have up right now is a live collaboration. Yeah, that's a collaboration right there. It's on Transient Labs. And we did that basically by drawing something and then blindly handing it to the next artist and blindly handing it to the next artist. And then when we finally unveiled it, which took like 3 years, it was really magical, right? And so
3 years. And
yeah,
how come 3 years?
Oh, it's kind of a complicated story, but we ran into some obstacles. We had one artist that was in and then who couldn't participate anymore, so we had to rejig the formula for passing the artwork from one person to the other. And then we were going to tokenize it on Async. Do you remember Async? Async was a programmable art NFT platform, and that's where we had put most of our work. And in the midst of finishing this, Async went out of business, and so we needed to wait for another platform that could do the technical aspect of what we wanted this to do, which was to change states given different times of day. So each of these artworks was made by 4 artists, and each of the artworks has 4 states that change at different times of day depending on, key to where you are in local time. So you're looking at it, if you're looking at it on transient lambs, if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it will have one state, and then at 5 o'clock it'll change into another state, and so on.
It's actually, like, looking at this reminds me of this. I don't know if you played it when you were a child or even adult. There is this game where you have like a piece of paper and you draw something.
Exactly.
You wrap it and you pass it down to somebody else.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is, and that's what we named it. So that game was called Exquisite Corpse, and it was developed by the Surrealists in Paris. And so we called this Exquisite Corpse, named after the 0x that's at the beginning of our what do you call them? Basically in reference to our Web3 world. So it's called Exquisite Corpse, exactly about that game. And we exhibited this piece in Paris, which was only 2 kilometers from where that original game was invented. So it's actually gone home again. Now, a few weeks ago, it was exhibited in Paris at the Artburst Gallery. So yeah, we have a lot of fun with these kinds of things. It's really fulfilling for me. And so I'm really glad that we had a chance to do this in Cuba. I would also be really interested to know how people in Cuba read this kind of collaborative artwork. I think, I would be really interested to know what people thought.
Thank you so much, Karen. So on the kind of organizing part of these things, I think we can also redo this webinar and call it 2.0 just to have Damian with us, and we can try it once again. However, the final question I wanted to ask you, if you could share what are you working on right now, any upcoming projects, and anything you would like to share with us?
Well, I think Damian wouldn't mind me mentioning that what we're trying to work on next with this project is getting some of the artists involved and creating a book together with individual artists. He has this concept, and I'll let him explain it because I don't want to give it away if he doesn't want to. But we are hoping to put together a collaborative book sometime soon, and so we're working out the details of that. And also for the artworks that we generated for this, for the live performance in Cuba, I think the idea would be to tokenize them and auction them at some point. And we're not entirely sure how or where, what's the best market, or if there's an auction house or a curator who would like to talk to us about that. We would actually really love support for that. Also, I think it would be really nice for all of us artists going forward, when we get together and make some of these artworks, I think that we should get together and make collaborative artworks and just put them out in the world and tokenize them whenever we have a chance as well, because it's such a fun process. And, why not? We always do this for ourselves, just for our own enjoyment, but why not share them with the world, right?
Yeah, definitely. And so before we wrap this up, this is how you can kind of stay tuned on everything that is happening in Cuba. This is Damian's Twitter account. But basically, Karen, I just wanted also to ask how people can stay posted on every initiative that would be happening in future. Should they kind of directly follow Damian, or maybe other way around?
We don't have a website or anything as such, but you could follow Damian and follow me because I'm probably the one likely to be posting things in English. So if your main language is English, then probably follow me. But definitely Damian too. And also another artist who's also in Cuba, who was the person who was taking all the pictures and videos. She's also an NFT artist, and her name is Claudia Padron. So if you follow her on Twitter, that's probably a good source as well.
Incredible. So I just want to thank you so much for your time. I think there is a chance we will redo it once again with Damian, if it is possible, to kind of elaborate deeper on Cuba and the processes that he kind of encountered while organizing this exhibition. But I do believe it was really useful and really interesting. And thank you so much for your time. And please keep us posted on everything that you're working on.
I will. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Have an incredible week.
Thanks.